Hey folks, welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge. This is Bandit, my doggy, my lovely little dog. Aren't you, buddy? You're a great dog, aren't you? Yes, he is. Quite obedient. 16, 17 pounds or whatever. They call them Poshies, Pomeranian Sheltie or Shetland Sheepdog. Pom, Sheltie, Poshi. It's a new breed that they're trying to create. He's about halfway through his life. He's about 6.5, 7 years old. And it's a good dog. And a lot of you know about him. I've shown him on other videos and you're curious about seeing him. So I figured I'd show you this little guy. Yeah, give me 5, buddy. Give me 5. Good boy. What are we talking about today? We're talking about what knife do I EDC? This video is not going to be which specific knife, brand and model do I prefer. That's not what it's about. It's about what type of knife do I like to EDC. Size, style, blade style, those kinds of things. What do I look for in the kind of knife that I personally prefer to carry around with me on a day-to-day basis? Now, I will give a disclaimer. I like almost every knife. I'm just one of those strange birds. I don't have a very specific preference of which knife I like to have in my collection. I like pretty much any kind of knife. I don't really go for, there's one exception, is those fantasy kind of knives. That just really doesn't mean all that much to me. But functional knives are what I like. And as far as that goes, just about any functional kind of knife I really like. But what do I actually carry with me when I go out the door? That's what we're going to talk about. Now, remember my context. I'm a Canadian. And it's illegal for us to carry knives for the purpose of self-defense. We can carry knives, but not with the intention of using it for self-defense. And so I don't carry a self-defense knife. But what kind of knife do I carry? That's what we're going to look at. I'm going to show you several, and we're going to do this on the tabletop. I'm going to try to cover a number of different subjects. This video might get long. Back when I was still a pastor, I would have 3 pages of full notes, and that would be over half an hour of talking. I had long sermons when I was doing that kind of thing. But I've got about 2.5 pages of notes. I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to get through it. I'll try to get much faster than 30 minutes, and I'll try to do some editing to keep it down. But I'm going to be giving my opinion. You are totally free to disagree. If you disagree with me, you're not wrong. You just have your own opinion of what you like best, and that's what's right for you. That being said, maybe you can learn something. Maybe you can adjust your thinking in some ways. Maybe you won't adjust your thinking. Maybe what you believe and like will be reinforced. Doesn't matter, whatever way. As long as when you're in the comments down below, don't be insulting people who disagree with you. I don't like fights and stuff. I generally delete those kind of emails, those kind of comments, and that's pretty rare. It's very rare that I have to go in there and start deleting comments, but certain things inspire debate more than others. I will say one other thing. Do I believe that the Canadian law against carrying a knife for self-defense is a good law? No, not a chance. I disagree with that law, but I comply with the law because that's the kind of person I am. We won't talk about exceptions or anything, just generally speaking. So let's get over to the tabletop now and take a look at the kinds of knives that Jake likes to carry on a day-to-day basis. Keep watching. Now, if you're new to this channel, one important factor to remember is this is a budget channel. Most of my knives are budget knives, meaning $50 US retail or less. Do I have knives that cost more? Certainly. I like this Tuya SNS, which is a nice small knife. This thing's retailing right now at Tuya Knives, and I really like Tuya Knives. This thing's retailing right now at $109.00 at the American distributor for Tuya Knives. And it's a really nice knife that I like. S35 VN steel, titanium handle scales, frame lock. It's a really nice knife. And I've carried it a fair bit. I still have to do the review on this guy, though. Sorry about that. I put it in its box in my tray that I use for knives that I have yet to review. I keep them in a separate spot, and I keep forgetting about this guy. So hopefully we'll remember to review this soon. So while I do like budget knives, the most, and that's generally what I carry. This knife is an example of a little bit more pricey knife, but not pricey by any big stretch of the imagination. Well, for some people's budgets maybe, but generally speaking, this is a good knife. And this is a lot in the line of what I carry most of the time. What do I carry the most? Some of you won't be surprised at all. Let me find it in my box here. Not this guy. Oh, there he is. The Sanrenmu 7010. So, of course, this is a copy of the Sebenza knives. The 7010 is a smaller knife, well under 3 inches, frame lock knife. I've got hands that are between large and extra large, and my hand totally wraps around this knife and gets totally hidden in there. But I still really like this knife, and this is one of my main EDCs. What do we have here? Stainless steel handle, 8CR13 MOV stainless steel blade. And that's it. It's a hollow grind, a little bit of a clip point, and I really, really like this knife. I carry it an awful lot. It's got tip down pocket clip, right side only, but I carry it an awful lot. Other knives that are similar to that, I carry this guy. This is an Enland. It's basically a copy of a buck knife. I think it's the Scholar, or is it the Colleague? Those two knives look the same. They're just two different sizes. And that's the kind of thing that I carry a lot, or even something like this. This is a slip joint, the 7095 by Sanrenmu. It's some versions of it have our frame lock, but the G10 version can have extra tools. You can get them without extra tools too. They're a little bit harder to find right now. It's even got a glass breaker. But as you can see, what's in common with all of these knives? They are smaller knives, and I like those an awful lot. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I've got my notes, and I forgot to even get started on them. I want to use these notes to help myself stay organized in my thoughts. So, a lot of people have asked me what I like to carry. Perhaps one of the most important things is determining what kinds of things I cut. That helps me make a decision on what kind of knives I like. What do I end up cutting? Well, I open packages with my knives. I sometimes cut things that I need to cut to clean up things, a piece of denim, some cordage, cardboard, things like that. That's generally what I end up cutting. Sometimes, removing a splinter, using the tip of a blade to cut open a splinter. Am I concerned about things being sterile? Not super overly. I do wipe it clean with an alcohol swab generally or something, and before I do something like cutting into my skin. But generally speaking, I keep my knives fairly clean and I keep my wounds clean. But, I'm not super crazy about, keeping stuff like that clean. Otherwise, cut the edge of a nail off, it's breaking or something. All kinds of little tasks like that. That's generally what I cut. And so what kind of knife do I need? Well, I really don't need a 4-inch blade. Something like this, a little bit under 3 inches, around 7 centimeters of a cutting edge is totally fine. I even often carry knives that are smaller. I often carry knives that have like 2-inch blades. So that's about 5 centimeter blades, on my keychain or whatever. But this is what I've got in my pocket most of the time. What don't I carry a knife for? Well, I mentioned it in the intro. I don't carry a knife for the purpose of self-defense. Mostly because of 2 reasons. One, like I mentioned before, it's illegal in Canada. And 2, I've never, ever in my life come across a scenario where I've needed it. I've got 3 brothers and a sister. And a couple of those brothers are much more rambunctious in their lives than I am, and they've never come across that kind of situation. I've got lots of friends and stuff. I don't know anybody who's had to take out a knife and use it for self-defense. Maybe that's part and parcel because I'm in Canada. Americans' experience might differ. You guys have much higher rates of crime than we have here in Canada, and especially crime with weapons. It just doesn't happen here all that much. And when it does happen, it's almost always between people who know each other. And I don't have people that I know that I get in disagreements with, at least not to the level where somebody would want to take out a weapon. It just doesn't happen. Now, your mileage may vary in your life experience. I'm not saying that you're wrong if you carry a knife for self-defense. If it was legal in Canada, I probably would carry a knife for the purpose of self-defense, but I don't. I carry a knife to do EDC kind of stuff, generally speaking. The one exception was when I was 9 years old, somebody stole on Halloween night my pillowcase full of candy. And my brother and I, the one that's just older than me, I'm the youngest, he was 10 and I was 9. We took out our little buck backlock knives, about 2.5-inch blades, maybe 2.25-inch blades, whatever it was. And we went out looking for those tweens, those guys that were like 12, 13 years old, something like that. We went looking for them to get our candy back. We never saw them again, and we did more trick-or-treating and we got some more candy anyways. But that's the only self-defense type of scenario where I ever carried a knife for the purpose of looking for somebody to hurt. And, it just doesn't happen. So that's a couple things. Now, let me keep on going here. Now, I would say if I lived in, if the government in Canada, just if anarchy broke out and the government stopped functioning and the police stopped functioning, I'd definitely carry stuff to protect myself and my family. It's just very natural. But in the current state of affairs in Canada, I just don't have that need. I don't see it. So this is the kind of thing I generally carry as my primary knife. But I also often, almost always, carry a second blade. And for that, it's usually something more this size. So let's put these guys away and leave out the most common knife. Even slip joints, not a problem. And that's something like this, the Ganzo 704, which is getting harder to find. Basically, it's just a tiny bit over 3 inches in the blade. It's got a full handle, so it fits my hand. You can fit my entire hand around it. And it's comfortable in hand. Or something like I just did an unboxing, and this guy was in there. I really like this knife, this QSP. What was the name of this one? I forget what the model name is. That's something, the same kind of thing. The hand fits in there, and the knife sticks out. And there you go. Something like this kind of size. One of the knives that I actually carry an awful lot is this guy. This guy was a flipper. This is the 9018. And flippers are becoming more restricted, not because of the law, but just because of the way enforcement works in the country. They're not liking flipper knives as much. They take them away more easily. You can see small thumb studs in here. I used Sugru. I've got a video on that on my other channel, Goods, Gadgets, and Gear, this material. And it creates a good material for, thumb stud delivery, deployment. And this is another nice blade, fits in the hand. It's easy to say, I like to carry this. It's a multi-tool. I'm carrying a tool. I'm not carrying a weapon. And that's one of the reasons why I like this knife full size, and it's a multi-tool. Of course, clearly, it's mostly a knife. So what do I look for in a knife of, either this size, or this size? You can see here examples of what I look for. I look for basically a lot of belly or a lot of belly and a little bit of straight edge. So here we got belly and a bit of a straight edge. This guy's all belly, and this guy's, belly with a little bit of a straight edge. I like hollow grinds and I like flat grinds. That's mostly what I'm into. Why do I like those grinds? Hollow grinds and especially full flat grinds, which I don't have a full flat grind right here, do I? Let me see if I got one in my box down here. That's a high flat grind. Still got to review him. I just got him recently. Here's the Ripple that I just got. The Ultra X Ripple. It's a full flat grind. Again, it's a lot of belly, just a little bit of flat section down there. These kinds of knives are what I like to carry. Let's see, what else do I have here? I reviewed this guy recently. Here's another full flat grind. The reason I like these is it takes longer for the knife to wear down to being thick behind the grind. So a high flat grind or a hollow grind, you can sharpen it many times before it starts getting thick behind the grind. And that's what I like, because a knife that's, I don't know if I've got an example with me now, like a short saber grind, not that great for EDC, because you sharpen that thing 30 times and now you've got a really thick behind the grind knife, and that's just less convenient for EDC type tasks. What don't I carry? I very seldom carry a tanto, a Western American style tanto blade. Very rarely carry a knife like that for EDC purposes. It just doesn't meet the kinds of scenarios that I get into the most. What kinds of things don't matter to me very much? I really don't care if the knife is 5.5, 6 ounces. This knife is probably, I haven't weighed it yet. This one's probably just over 5 ounces. No problem at all. I don't mind. You can give me a knife like this that's 7 ounces, and I really don't care. Unless it's in the middle of summer and it's hot and I'm wearing light fabric shorts. In that case, I prefer to carry something, quite a bit smaller and lighter. This thing's probably 2.5 ounces. Hopefully that's an accurate number. Something little like this, because I don't like it pulling on my pants. But normally I'm wearing denim, I have a belt on, I'm 50 years old now. I often wear suspenders, it really doesn't matter. And, a big knife is just much more convenient for a lot of tasks, but I don't generally take these out unless, I'm doing something where a knife this size just can't perform the task. Then I pull out a bigger knife. So, weight doesn't mean that much to me. Color of the handle. I really couldn't care too much about the color of the handle. There's certain colors I prefer. I really like this new grayish blue that's becoming popular. I like black. I like OD green. I like this tan, but I also like orange. Or frame locks for that matter. Red, bright, vibrant knives. I don't mind. Unless I'm in a scenario where I don't want people to see that I'm carrying a knife. There's some cities in my province, I live in Alberta, Canada, where carrying a knife in that city is illegal. And then I almost only carry something small. I don't carry a full-size knife in that scenario. Generally, it's something quite small, and often it's something that I can say, this isn't just a knife. I'm carrying tools. It just happens to be tools that include, a knife. So sometimes even just a Victorinox multi-tool knife I carry or something like that. Even if it might be stretching, the laws, I've just never been in a situation where I even came remotely close to having anybody, call me out for what I'm carrying, and certainly not a member of the law enforcement. It just doesn't happen. Because I don't get into knife fights. I don't pull knives out to threaten people. Stuff like that doesn't happen. Let me pull up my notes here again, make sure I'm staying on track here. So color of handle. Jimping. You'll notice this. There's very little jimping on a lot of these knives. And I don't mind jimping on the handle just about anywhere. The only kind of jimping I don't prefer is when there's really fine jimping up here that is aggressive. Fine, sharp jimping. Or big sharp jimping. This is about the most aggressive that I like. This is the 704, the G704 by Ganzo. I think they got the F704 out since then. I don't know if they're going to make a very new version of it now that they're doing D2 blades or not. But this has got a thumb riser with fine jimping there, so the thumb can really lock in there, and that's about as aggressive as I like. But many knives, most of my knives, don't have jimping on the spine of the blade, and they seldom have jimping anywhere else. Oop, that pulled up some denim on the pocket clip right there. I'll clean that later. It's got a little bit of jimping on the liner lock release, and that I do like. I like being sure that I'm going to be able to unlock the knife when I want to. Flipper tabs. It's hard to find knives that aren't flipper knives right now, that are good quality knives in the budget category. That changed about 2 years ago when flipper knives just took off. But before then, a lot of knives had thumb studs, and you can still find a lot of knives with thumb studs too. And I don't mind a thumb stud. that's just as fast functionally of deployment as I can get with a flipper tab. Automatic knives are illegal in Canada, by the way. I like flipper knives. They're totally fine. But I still, for some reason, prefer thumb stud deployment even better. Is just my preference. And it doesn't matter one way or the other what you think. Well, it does. It matters to you. But I'm not saying, what I mean is one's not better than the other in terms of use or functionality. It's a preference type thing. And I prefer thumb studs. And it's not a huge preference over flipper tabs. It just is what it is. One other thing that I look for in a knife, I like deep carry pocket clips. Now, something like this, where it's a very deep carry, you just have a tiny bit of the handle sticking out, that's great. But that being said, I also don't mind something like this, where you've got 1/2 inch sticking out of your pocket, about 1.5 centimeters. No big deal to me at all. If there's a little bit of the handle exposed, I really don't mind. If it's a tip down carry, I really don't mind either. It really doesn't make a difference to me. I did a whole video on tip up and tip down, and I compared the speed of deployment because there's a lot of knives that I have, especially a lot of Ganzo knives, that have 4-way pocket clips. And so with everything else being equal, the exact same knife, I had one with a tip up pocket clip and one with a tip down, and I saw how fast I can deploy them. And there's less than 1/2 second difference between the deployment speed of either one. And from the time I start taking it out of the pocket till I'm ready to use it, less than 1/2 second difference. It really makes no difference to me. It might make a big difference to other people, but when I actually took the time to test it out, for me, it really doesn't make any difference. Let me go over my notes again, see if I missed anything. No, not really. I just wanted to describe sort of what kind of knife I like. If you like the kind of information I share with you and give to you, please consider becoming a supporter of the channel, either a one-time gift or donation, or becoming a Patreon supporter. I would really appreciate that. If you do become a Patreon supporter of $2 or more per month, then you get your name in a monthly draw for one of the knives that I reviewed that previous month. So that's a good little incentive for us to share back and forth. You help me out a little bit. That really helps. I do make a little bit of money on the advertisements for the channel. So if it doesn't make a difference to you, let the advertisements play on my channel, because that will help me out a little bit. If you just don't like adverts, skip over them. By all means, skip over them. But thank you to those guys who support me by letting the adverts play. And, Patreon supporters, you guys are awesome. And I do have some links for certain stores like White Mountain Knives. You can get 10% off if you use my coupon code CCE. And then the more people that use the coupon code CCE, the more Justin, the owner of White Mountain Knives, will help me out by allowing me to buy knives at cost. And that helps out this channel an awful lot too. There's all kinds of good ways that we can help one another. Thank you to all my supporters. You guys are awesome. I tried to answer most of the comments. I haven't been lately because of an injury that I had on my arm and my hand. It just made it very hard for me to type. But I think I'm mostly better in that regard. But if you really want an answer from me and you want me to give some thought into giving the answer instead of just what's off the cuff, email me at canadiancuttingedge@gmail.com, and I'd love to converse with you. And go ahead and ask your questions. Anything about knives, any implements that cut, hatchets, axes, all kinds of stuff, saws. I have done a few videos on outdoor saws, not lately, but in the past. Any kinds of questions, I'll try to answer them to the best of my knowledge. And, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for watching my video, for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And in my opinion, something like this is a perfect EDC. Thanks for watching. Remember, guys, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb. Have a good day. Bye now.